Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 131 of Discourse in Magic with Harapan Ong. Now, this is once again someone who was brought on the podcast after we discovered him on Instagram, which is super cool and should be a reminder to you to reach out to people who you follow online because they very well might respond. And not only is his magic online incredible, but he has a series called Fully Booked, where once a week he releases a trick, or sort of he shows a trick from a magic book, from an old-fashioned magic book or an older magic book, sort of blending the old with the new of learning magic, the Instagram learning pace and the book learning pace, and trying to bridge those gap between those two. So if that doesn't give you a taste for who he is, then I think this episode will, and it was a real blast. I think you're really going to like it and learn a bunch. Here it is, episode 131 with Harapan Ong. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah.
My name is Tyler.
And we are here with a very special guest, and it's always exciting to bring somebody on who you follow online on social, and I know that you guys follow him on Instagram too. We are here with Harapan Ong. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, everyone.
We are super excited to have you on and to chat about magic. Let's start at the very top as usual. How did you get into magic? How did you start this thing?
Okay, so I'm from Singapore, and unfortunately in Singapore, compared to, let's say, America or Canada, magic is not the most common art form or not the most common hobby as well. So I got started in magic basically watching David Copperfield TV specials in the 90s. Growing up, David Copperfield was quite common on Singapore television, and I watched a lot of that. And I remember the one trick that really got me into magic was his Grandpa's Aces routine, the Ace Assembly. I still remember the moment he sort of made the Ace vanish when he waved his hand over the deck. And I was just completely, mesmerized. And I took a deck of cards and spent the rest of the night just trying to figure it out. And I essentially invented my own color change. And that was my first sleight of hand, I guess, with cards. But that was how I figured it out, and that's how I got hooked onto magic.
So there's two things that are really exciting there to me. The first is that obviously David Copperfield, and we've heard in so many different people's stories as well as my own, this idea of being hooked on a David Copperfield special and that being a piece of inspiration. And particularly the Grandfather's Aces, which to me was something that I repeated in my hands, hoping that it would magically work. The second part that was really exciting about that was that you invented your own color change, which is to say that you had this interest or this inkling about wanting to play with those things and not just do magic like Harry Potter or something like that. So that's very interesting to me. Let's continue on the journey. So you saw David Copperfield magic. You fell in love with it, particularly the Grandfather's Aces. Then what? Where did it go from there?
Yeah, so from there, I think as most magicians growing up in the sort of before the internet age, how they got into magic was the magic set. I got my first magic set with all the plastic toys, the ball and vase, and color. Is it called Color Vision? The one with the box and had like colored spots on the cube. I got that at 10 years old for my birthday. And then when I was 11, my father one day just came home and said, "You know what? For your birthday today, I'm going to bring you to a magic shop." He found a magic shop in Singapore. It was hidden away in some shopping mall. And that was my first magic shop. The shop's name was called Magic Castle. It is still there, although in a different location, but Magic Castle still exists in Singapore. I know it's kind of a strange name for the American listeners because Magic Castle is obviously the Hollywood entertainment venue we all know. Yeah. But in Singapore, Magic Castle is a magic shop. And that was my first magic shop. I got my first deck of cards, my first bicycle deck over there. I got my first props. I got my first books. I got my first DVDs there. Yeah, and those were fond memories.
Wow. So it's interesting that a magic shop played a role in your magic, particularly because now it sounds like, and I'd love to hear about your either a lot or lack thereof involvement with magic shops right now, but it seems like so much of what you do right now is online. So it's very exciting to see that transition. Now let's go a little bit further. So you started learning from magic shops, and then I know that you're not a magician full time. So tell us what else it is that you do full time, and then sort of what the transition was for you to start for lack of a better way to explain it, using magic, doing magic, making videos, or lecturing, whatever it is that you started doing of magic, really? When did that come in?
Yeah, it's kind of a strange thing because when I was growing up, being a teenager, doing magic in school, as I think maybe many of us do, being known as the magic guy in school, the idea of being a professional magician has entered my mind when I was younger. In fact, I almost decided to quit school, quit going to college, quit going to university just to pursue magic full time. But somehow, parental pressure, family pressure, just don't, they suggested I don't do that because it's not an easy job. Instead, just go down the conventional route of going to college, getting a good degree, getting a good job. I'm not sure if these are like Asian family values or something like that, but that was how I was brought up. So I ended up going down that route, and I have no regrets. I really enjoyed my time in university. I studied physics in university. I got my bachelor's degree in London, and then my master's degree also in the UK in Cambridge. And through that experience, actually, I think I got more. I found myself having more time to explore the fun bits of magic than I think I ever could if I became a professional magician. Because if you're a professional, you're obviously tied down to do gigs and so on. But being an amateur magician has been really fun for me so far.
Wow. So that's a super exciting story that you got a lot of value out of doing magic on the side. And that's something that is worth just even momentarily highlighting, because a lot of people do magic on the side as not their profession, and they feel some sort of negativity about that, or they feel some sort of, and I love that immediately you highlighted that you get to work on creating and working on whichever fun stuff you want, because you're not tied down to do gigs, and you're able to, whatever it is, spend time with other magicians, learn, study, it gets to be your hobby, your other thing in your spare time. So that's very cool to me.
It really is a blessing in disguise. I feel like a lot of magicians in Singapore, they tend to want to be professional magicians. And of course, there's nothing wrong with being professional and making a living off magic. But a lot of my friends who grew up with me in magic, at first they may have started out as amateurs, learning the new color change, learning a new double lift subtlety, Altman traps and so on. But then after a while, once they get into professional work, they sort of lose interest in all of that. And in a way, sometimes it's a little bit sad that they kind of forget what made them interested in magic to begin with. And they started thinking more about, that trick is not really, it's good, but I don't really like it. It's not practical or something like that, which is fine. I mean, these are obviously legitimate concerns a professional magician would have, but I kind of find myself being very lucky that I get to do whatever I want. If I'm interested in memorized deck magic, which is what I'm interested in nowadays, that's what I want to explore. If I'm interested in gaff cards, that's what I want to do. I don't have to worry about what a hypothetical audience at a wedding or something like that would enjoy. I just do what I love to do, and I strive to be good at what I do.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great, and I think that it lends to people at home, or even Tyler, who doesn't do magic full time but gets the joy out of dipping into the parts that are particularly exciting.
Yeah,
I mean, it not only does it allow you to do the type of magic that you want to do, but it allows you to spend whatever amount of time you want on it without worrying about being practical down the line. It really gives you like unlimited room to play.
Completely. One of my biggest, I mean, not say biggest, but one of my more recent inspirations was there's this blog called The Jerks, right? There's this magic blog, The Jerks.
Yeah. Oh,
I love that blog. He has this booklet called, I think it's called The Amateur at the Kitchen Table. It was published along with his book. What a fantastic book. It's such a great little booklet on being an amateur magician and what it means to be an amateur magician and the kind of attitudes and performance ideas you can have as an amateur magician. I love that book so much. It speaks so much about what I think about magic. So if any of you out there who can get it, do get it. It's quite a rare book, but if you can get it, it's great.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk a little bit about the playing and the enjoyment that you get to do in Magic and let's just start where it really is, on Instagram. So
Sure.
we'll talk about your new or newish thing, which is the Fully Booked. But you've been on Instagram for quite a while, longer than that. So talk to us a little bit about that journey and what you're doing on that platform.
I strangely enough, sort of ironically, I'm actually pretty slow on social media. I never got on Instagram. I think I got on Instagram maybe about 3 years ago, which is, I mean, maybe it sounds long, but actually it's not that long considering how long Instagram has been around for. My friend just said, "Hey, it's the 21st century, Harapan. You better get on Instagram. You better get on Instagram." So I decided to sign up for an account and just posted some random food photos and scenery photos for no reason. I couldn't find my voice. I didn't know what the point of social media was until I posted a video of me doing some. I think it was a snap change. I was doing a snap change subtlety I came up with, and that got some response. So I thought, oh, okay. So I guess people do respond to magic on Instagram, and I just kept doing that. And I've been doing that for about 3 years. I post about once or twice a week. Usually, I started out doing just sort of random card tricks and so on that either I invented or other people have come up with. I read in a book. But recently, just to sort of give my followers a regularly scheduled kind of thing, I decided to use my magic book collection as the focus for my channel, which is I will review about a book, roughly around about one book a week, or maybe one book every 2 weeks. I post a trick from the book. I post a video of myself performing a trick for 1 minute, and then the next video is just 1 minute review of the book. So it's sort of like a book review for the new generation, right? They just want short videos. They don't have time to watch a 10-minute video of you reviewing it. So that's how I'm doing my Fully Booked series.
So there's a few exciting things that I want to touch on there. The first is that I love that you are directing people towards books as part of what you're doing, because it's such a rich area of magic that everyone's talking about, but people talk about the importance of books and then they're just endlessly posting random videos. So one of the most exciting parts about the Fully Booked series is that you're talking about the books that come afterwards, and you're talking about how the creators of those books have created things that have been later re-released by magicians, and that's a hint as to to go back and look at the old material. My question is, have you undergone any sort of hate or complaints or whatever? Because there's so many people talking negatively about this Instagram world of magic, right? And this sort of like instant magic and this quick and things like that. So what's your view on that? Do you even worry about it? Is it something that you think about? What's your thought?
It's kind of funny because I feel that I'm in a very privileged position of being young enough to be able to be on social media and understand how social media works, but also being somewhat old enough that I can relate to the older people when they talk about social media magic being bad. I think there's one category of social media magic that I'm personally not a huge fan of, which is the kind of I don't want to name names, but the kind of stuff where it's purely just reaction based. You get the spectator and the magician facing the camera and saying, "Look at this!" Bam! Everyone apparently screams when everyone's just acting and things like that. I understand they're trying to build a brand, and that's fine. But I, at the same time, I don't agree with the older magicians when they say that social media magic is not magic, that it's it has to be done live and so on. To me, it's just a different medium. It's just a different way of performing magic. And honestly speaking, it's not that easy to get good on social media with just magic alone. There are a lot of rules. There are a lot of unwritten rules, and the kind of magic you do has to be very visual, has to be very short, has to be very impactful, has to be very sort of thumbnail worthy, things like that. It is an art in of itself that a lot of the older magicians just don't get, of course, because they're not used to that kind of platform. But so I think there is an art to social media magic that is still unexplored, and I wish more magicians would really take it more seriously as opposed to just leaving it to the people who are just doing it for the sake of followers and so on. There is an art to it. And if you look at old books, actually, the moment there was television, the moment television magic became popular, there are quite a number of books that sort of state things like, oh, this trick is just for TV. I think Paul Harris has a trick that's like, this trick is just for TV. It doesn't work in real life, but here it is. And it's in a Paul Harris book. And you would, and I think this sort of thing can happen. And I think I was just reading a book by Jack Avis, and there's an item in it called TV Coin Vanish. So it's basically a coin vanish that's very angly, very impractical. But it's published in a Jack Avis book, and you wouldn't necessarily relate Jack Avis to Instagram magic or TV magic. But I think there is a demand and a market for that kind of magic. But it has to be made clear to people buying the trick that this is just TV/Instagram magic. It's not practical in the real world, but for video, it is absolutely perfect.
Okay, so there's a few different things I want to unpack there. The first is you started talking about how, I said, what do you think about Instagram magic? Which, I was assuming you would be on the defensive because people are usually on the attack about it. And you said instead you wish more people were doing Instagram magic, which is amazing. And I think that it's in the correct direction. Just to wrap up one of the other leading complaints about it, and I'd love to know your opinion, is what do you feel or say when somebody says, oh, those Instagram magicians, they would be caught dead performing in real life. They can perform for a camera, but they wouldn't be able to perform for a gig or a show or even real people.
Honestly, it's possible. It's highly possible that these people may not be able to do well in real life because their main platform is not, it's not in real life, which is kind of strange, but increasingly our lives are becoming more and more online. And I understand if someone says, oh, my magic is mainly online. It is kind of unconventional nowadays because I understand magic is best experienced live. But the fact that more and more people experience entertainment, they watch their shows, they watch their movies online, on their phone. So it makes sense to say that they want to watch magic shows online. So it is a market for magicians to think about making their magic more video friendly as opposed to being performance friendly. But like I said, when they meet you in person, you better be good at what you do in real life as well. So yeah, I don't see a problem with magicians being sort of more online friendly than offline friendly. As long as I think if people meet you in real life, you better have something that you can do, just as well, so that people don't just think, oh, you're just someone on the screen that I cannot relate to.
I love that. I think that that's a really good answer to a problem there's a lot of people yelling from the rooftops about. One thing I wanted to dive into is your learning methods, and in that your love for books. A lot of people like to talk about how important magic books are, but then they all they do is watch videos and haven't read a magic book in a decade. And everyone likes to say it's one of those things that people like to repeat about all the magic book learning that they do. But you think back and you realize maybe it's been a while since you learned a trick from a book. So talk a little bit about maybe the importance of learning from books and also about how you have learned magic in your life. Has it been mostly through books? Has it been mostly through experiences? Was there a time where it was a lot through video?
Yeah. So it's kind of strange. You hit on a point that made me chuckle because often magic books are used as a way to prove that you're a real magician, right? It's almost like, oh, I've read Hermes. Oh, you haven't? Oh man, you're not a real card magician. How dare you? You've not read any of these books. How dare you? But in reality, a lot of people haven't read many magic books for whatever reason. In my opinion, magic books. The main reason why magicians should read magic books is because there is just simply so much material out there still in book form that is not in video form. The sort of perennial, everlasting argument about books and videos, which is a better medium for instruction, they both have their pros and cons, right? So with books, the good thing about books is that, firstly, there's so much stuff out there that's not in video form yet. Secondly, I think that books, one big advantage about books is that you don't need a battery to read books. You can read it anytime. I'm not worried about the battery running on, which is, it's actually a very big factor. A lot of people don't realize that. Often you're watching a video and your battery on your iPad runs out or something like that. Whereas books I carry around with me, I can bring it anywhere I go. Another big factor I like about books is I think that books really do inspire and spark the imagination more than videos. I think videos are perfect for learning intricate sleight of hand. If you want to learn a diagonal palm shift, if you want to learn a certain subtlety on a pinky break, I think videos are better than books for it. Because if you want to do a move perfectly as the author wants it, what's better than just watching the performer do it, right?
Right.
Whereas books, you tend to have to read and touch the flash of the finger or the left, right finger, things like that. It's just crazy trying to understand sleight of hand from a book. But if you want to learn routines and you want to sort of be inspired by a book as opposed to copy a magician, books are the way to go. I really like books for inspiring me. But that also means, I don't know if you agree with me, I feel like, this is so strange because I'm promoting magic books on a social media platform to beginners, and yet I'm saying this. I feel like books are not the best medium for learning when it comes to beginners.
I agree.
I feel that instead, if a beginner were to be suggested to pick up something like a DVD, maybe Michael Mr's Easy to Master Card Miracles, LNL DVD set, where they're just learning tricks, I think it would inspire a beginner more than just learning random slides. Here's a subtlety on how to do an overhead shuffle properly. Why am I learning that? It doesn't make sense. A beginner wants to learn magic. And once they get interested in magic, then you can go into the more abstract stuff when they really want to push their magic further. So I think videos are better for beginners than books, honestly.
I totally agree. This reminds me of something that Tyler and I were just talking about, which is that when someone's learning a new instrument, let's say guitar, one of the things you want to do is you want to teach them a few notes or a few chords just so they can play a song as early as possible, because that's why they're picking up the instrument. Like, of course they need to learn all of the music vocabulary, all of the notes and all of the chords. But to start and to get somebody hooked, you got to get them to play a song as quickly as possible. It's the same thing for magic.
Absolutely.
So I think that that's a really big highlight. And I also think, one of the things that I would like to push is, even though you are talking about the importance of books, which I would agree with, there is this little high horseness of like YouTube, and they're saying, oh no, you learned off YouTube. You should have learned from books. And what you were saying is the part that I want to highlight, which is that learn from wherever you want. The benefit and the bonus of books is what you were saying, that there is so much of it and that it's so rich, and there's a lot of it that isn't popular or popularized yet. But if you just want to work with video, there's also unlimited video. Like, there's no real problem with it, and learn from wherever you want. There's just certain benefits and advantages from learning from books.
Yes. And one of the advantages, like I mentioned, was that I think it's especially true for people who are slightly better at magic. In other words, maybe you're an intermediate magician, is that it inspires you more. Honestly, I feel like books, because when you read a book, for some reason, I feel that it requires you to imagine the trick more in your own way. You have to interpret what the author is saying. And I feel myself creating a lot more tricks when I read books as opposed to watching a video.
Totally. One of the things that happens, and this is one of the reasons why people vouch for books so much, is you read a trick, and when there's moves that you don't like or are out of date or outdated, or you have something that you replace or that is a go-to for you, as you read the trick and as you go through it a few times, you end up building a sort of Franken trick. It's your version of a trick, and it evolved like that as it was being built. And what a beautiful way to, grow into a piece of magic where you're not, sometimes it's great to do things exactly as it is in the text, but other times I think it's great to get a little bit confused and imaginative and into the process.
Yeah. I think there is a very common idea that a book is worth it. Buying a book is worth it if you can learn one trick from the book, or if one trick from the book goes into your repertoire. But I feel that's not true. For me, the value of a book is in how many ideas it inspires in you, as opposed to how many tricks you can just lift off the page into your repertoire. So a lot of the books I read, honestly speaking, the books that inspire me the most are not necessarily the best magic books. They are the ones that are like kind of okay. They are kind of interesting ideas, but they can certainly be improved on. And they inspire so much things in me because I really want to improve on those tricks. So when I read something like a book, I mean, this sounds really bad, but let's say when I read a book, Williamson's Wonders by David Williamson's material. It's so good. Everything in there is so good and so polished and so perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not inspired by it. Just that I can't improve on anything. When I read it, it's like, yep, that is perfect. That is the best routine I've ever seen. And I close the book and I'm happy. And that's it. Whereas if I read something, sort of an old book where the tricks are only kind of okay, there's something interesting in it, but it's not perfect yet. It makes me want to improve on it to a point where I can perform it. So those are the books I really enjoy reading the most.
That's very interesting. I think like it's super, I don't know, it's just very interesting to me that you're talking about books and finding, unpolished things in books that you can work on, because that's the exact argument people make against social media, is that nothing is polished, right? People are just putting out ideas that don't have enough work put into them. And my counter argument to that was always like, that's how you grow. Now all these amateur magicians are going to make the mistakes for you, and you can look at the good stuff that they put out and ignore the bad stuff. So it's kind of cool that like it sort of works on both sides of that.
Yeah, I mean, they always say, right, necessity is the mother of invention. So when I scroll through social media, I scroll through my Instagram feed, I look at magic tricks, I often see a lot of nonsense that, it's not that good. But once in a while, inspiration comes from anywhere. The moment I feel it's necessary to improve on something, then I feel that's how my creative spark is ignited. So I love watching. I love watching bad magic that's only kind of interesting, but it's still bad. And then that's how I got. Yeah. That's how I get excited to invent something new.
Something about it is so exciting and interesting to me about the idea of problem solving, where you like unpolished and unfinished and problems that need solving, that need updating and tweaking. And one of the most important skills that I find continuously showing up in magic is to take a trick and either modernize it or make it you or reinvent it, or, everyone is trying to. David Williamson, for example, is my perfect example of somebody who there's certain tricks that he does which he didn't invent the trick, but they are iconic now to his name and to who he is. And if you see it, you think David Williamson. And the reason is because
absolutely
right, and it's because he has added so much to it that it has become a part of him and his character and who he is. So I think there's such an important part of magic to take things and evolve them into who you are. And that's the thing I see in what you were just saying.
Yes, I'm a huge proponent of people trying to invent their own stuff. I always think about stand-up comics. In stand-up comedy, it's such a taboo to steal people's jokes. If you do someone else's jokes, you'll be ostracized by the community. But in magic, it's almost okay to just take someone's work and just perform it on stage.
It is okay. People have advanced very late in America's Got Talent round doing magic shop tricks.
Yeah, it is. It totally is. So it's kind of strange. But I feel that as magic matures, hopefully, as magic becomes more mainstream, as audiences become more aware and more savvy of what magic and what magic isn't, that it will push more magicians to actually be more original with their stuff.
Yeah, well, we're having something crazy happen right now where everyone was always asking the question of what do we do with the internet with the problem of magic exposure, of non-magicians knowing secrets? And now there's a way bigger problem, which is exposure to magic. Like there are all these non-magicians who have now watched dozens of episodes of Fool Us, dozens of magicians on America's Got Talent, clips of Rick Lax and Julius Dean. And, these now, when people used to say, you've seen an average of 1.5 magicians in your life, it's not even remotely true. These people have seen hundreds of magic performances. Some have gone to see live magic. Like people are so exposed to magic, and never mind just magic, good magic. To get on these shows, you have to be at least a little bit. So now what's happening is you come out on stage and you pull out a Rubik's Cube and someone leans the person next to him and they go, I saw somebody do this before, right? So it's up to us to be so inventive and so creative right now, and it's a problem that I think that nobody saw coming as serious as it is right now.
Well, if you think about it honestly, Jonah, is it really a problem?
No, not a problem. I mean, situation more. Yeah,
it's. I don't think it's a problem. I think it's a good thing. It kind of reminds me of this thing that when I was in Spain. When I was in Spain, I heard this story from my friend People. I don't know if you know him, People Villanueva.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
He's a fantastic magician. What a fantastic magician. One of the best I know. He was telling me a story about how Spanish magic got to be so good, with Tamariz and Ascanio and so on. Is that it is that problem? It is a situation of exposure to magic, because back in the 70s and 80s when Tamariz was on TV, there were probably only two channels on Spanish TV. And one channel was almost dedicated entirely to Tamariz doing card tricks.
Wow.
Right? So Tamariz really was the David Blaine of Spain for decades. So he was on TV almost all the time doing either stand-up comedy, which he used to be a stand-up comedian, or he was doing card tricks on TV. And he was doing really good card magic, right? He was doing mnemonica. He was doing all his crazy subtle card magic with crazy mathematical principles and so on. So the Spanish people really got exposed to really good card magic from a very young age, right? Back then. So when I go to Spain, honestly, I went to Spain to see Tamariz perform a few years ago. He was doing a one-man show. I was very lucky to have gone there. And I was staying in this one-star hotel that Danny, the artist, suggested me stay in. It was a really seedy hotel for some reason. And the receptionist was like, "Oh, what are you doing here in Spain?" I said, "I'm going to see Tamariz." And he was like, "Oh, man, I want to see Juan Tamariz again. He hasn't been on TV for such a long time. I grew up watching him on TV, and I want to see his show again someday," something like that. He's so famous. Wow. And that's because everyone knows. Everyone has that in Spain has that standard of magic, in the general public. They know that magic can be this good. So no one else can, everyone is trying to top Tamariz in Spain, essentially.
Right.
So I think that's why Spanish close-up magic is so strong, because the general public know that there is this standard of magic out there. It is not just hippity-hop rabbits. It's not just, typical random stuff you pull off the shelf. It can be this good, which is why I think it's a good thing for magic to be this exposed to the general public.
So what do you think about people talking? By the way, that's an awesome story, and that was information about Tamariz that I didn't know. It's very exciting about Spanish magic. What's your thoughts on the sort of response about people creating too early in the journey that, anybody can create something that's original, but if it's original and it's crap, then what's the point? So what's your sort of counter argument or agreement, or how do you work with that?
I don't think it's a problem of creating too early. I think the problem is when people try to sell their creations too early.
Oh.
Right? So, when I was young, I was trying to create my own stuff as well, which was all terrible. But luckily, I had someone to tell me that it was bad. And so I couldn't publish it. I think the traditional route of creating and publishing a material used to be you create something, you would submit to maybe a magazine or a journal, maybe Magic Magazine or Genie Magazine or something like that, for people to read your trick for free. And that's how you got into publication before one day you realize this trick can really sell well. And then you sell it to a company and so on. So I went down the route. You see, I went down the route. So I submitted my tricks to Joshua J., who was back then the editor for Magic Magazine, the trick editor for Magic Magazine. And probably, I think the first 10 tricks I submitted were all rejected in a row because he felt they weren't good, right? And I really thank him for that he had the standards there to sort of reject this random Asian kid from Singapore who was trying to submit a weird SpongeBob routine. I remember I tried to submit a SpongeBob routine that was just completely unoriginal. but he rejected very politely. He said, "That's not original. I can't publish that." But nowadays, the problem is there are a lot of small magic companies that are just willing to take anything in, right?
Right.
They're just willing to publish anything. So any random person goes there, "Hi, I've got this weird trick with a pack of gum," or something like that. Like, okay, I'll just publish it for you. And it's very easy to film something very quickly and publish it online and put it online and sell it as well. And with good editing, any trailer can look good and any trick can look pretty good. And that's how a lot of kids get started into magic. Because fair enough, a lot of kids want to be like their idols. They want to be the next Blake Voigt. They want to be the next Kalen Morelli. They want to be the next Patrick Kuhn. They want to look cool in the trailer. They want to publish stuff. But that's not how magic is published, You don't start by selling something immediately. And when it comes to money, it's always slightly there's more at stake, right? If you publish something that is kind of only okay in the magazine, like people will forget about it after a while. But if you sell something, it's out there for people to buy with their money. So it needs to be more polished than usual. So a lot of magicians, I think a lot of young magicians, they just want the prestige more than the money. They just want the prestige of having published and be selling something. But unfortunately, it's just too early on. I would prefer if they went on the traditional route of just publishing something for free in a magazine to get the feel of having published something before they start selling things down the road.
There's a few interesting things there. The first is that sort of memory back to those days. I mean, you could still go that route, but the memory of that's how things were published and why that was better. And also, the reflection that people creating random things that they come up with early isn't problematic. It's only problematic when they go to sell it. And another reason which you didn't touch on, which I am not the expert in this category, but just something worth mentioning, is another reason is a very funny conversation I had when I was very young, when I sat down with Ben Train and I said, oh, here's an original trick. And he said, before you do it, let me tell you, if you think that it's original, you haven't learned enough. You haven't studied enough. You're literally 13. Like, it's not original. I'm sure that that's true. And he was obviously right. And, the thing that comes out of it, what you're talking about that you didn't mention, is that people are publishing things that they think are original and it's not. And it was come up with many, many years before. And the thing is there's no issue with independent creation. If you came up with something that Vernon also came up with, fantastic. That means you're smarter than the average person. It's only a problem when you then try to release it and then someone's like, whoa, you didn't come up with it. So the idea of just creating early and doing whatever you want to come up with things is of no harm to anyone, is really interesting. And that the harm really comes when you're trying to publish things.
Yeah, but nowadays in Singapore, not that I'm permanently based in Singapore, when I host these magic jams in Singapore, I don't know if you know it, I try to host these once a month open jams.
I've seen them on Instagram story. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, basically every month, not from this year, every month I try to host an open magic jam. I find a venue for magicians to just come and meet, and all magicians are welcome. They're welcome to just join and just session and jam essentially once a month for about 4 hours, in the afternoon, on a weekend afternoon. One thing I really advise young magicians to do is to start creating your own stuff, even if it's bad. You don't have to sell it, but I think it's a really good idea for young magicians to strive to be original. I think that's important as opposed to just doing tricks they see on Theory 11 and they just copy it over and they just buy the gimmick and just keep it in their drawer after a few uses. I think it's important for
Why?
I think it comes down to the same thing we were talking about, which is nowadays as audiences get more and more savvy, I think it's important as a performer, as a magician, as an artist, to have your own voice so that when you perform for people, you are unique and people will want to see you.
So it's more of a, do you think it's more of like a practical issue in terms of audiences, or more of like a moral issue and an issue of like doing something special?
Well, the moral issue is a little bit annoying because I'm not sure what morality really, what the moral issues entail. I mean, besides just ripping people off and publishing their material, but it comes down to the thing we said in stand-up comedy. If you do other people's jokes, you'll be ostracized by everyone. But right. In magic, if I do David Copperfield's bandana routine or whatever, that old classic bandana routine, is that really that bad? What's the moral issue there? But I think, like you said, eventually people are going to catch on, especially increasingly with more audiences knowing that magic, there's this huge magic pantheon out there of tricks that look the same. If you pull out a Rubik's Cube, people will think you're Stephen Brundage or you're,
Right.
So I think instead of talking it in an ethics kind of situation, maybe we think about it in an aesthetics kind of situation, which is, as an artist, you want to have your own voice. You want to do your own art. You don't want to just rip people off or just copy other people. To me, I find no satisfaction in that.
Yeah, I think that, you should really be in magic because you love it.
100%.
And that when there comes to making money from doing magic, just because you have the opportunity to jump on a market doesn't mean you should. Like, if it's going to ruin everyone else in that art form's ability to pursue it or pursue it well, or it's going to hurt someone because you're stealing their idea, just because it's possible does not mean, you need to make that little extra dollar here and there. You should really be focused on the passion, because this is an art,
One of the parts that's so funny to me about the idea about doing your own art is I always chuckle a little bit to myself when a magician says, well, I do magic because it allows me to express myself. And then their magic is exactly verbatim somebody else's trick. And I'm like, what in the world are you expressing? Like, it seems like it comes down to just the process of selecting the trick that you're expressing, because barring that, you're doing someone else's. And even if like 10% of it is yours or 20%, like, what are you expressing? Like, what part of it is an art form to you in terms of like, what are you saying to the world, about the world? What are you saying about yourself? Like, what are you even expressing that warrants you saying that you love it as a form of expression? People say, I love magic as a form of communication. I'm like, what in the world are you communicating? So to me, that is the most important part of what you touched on about creativity, which is, if you're going to claim to be an artist and a creator and a doer and someone who does something special, like, you actually have to do something different, because then you can say that you're expressing something, because hopefully if you're going to do something different, then you are expressing something, saying something, you're doing it for a reason, whether it's a reason that you want other people to understand, or it's a reason for you, like you're like secretly obsessed with Vernon and you want to do all his, like, it doesn't matter what the reason is, that's up to the artist, but like, do a thing for a like come up with something new or interesting. Do you see what I'm getting all excited about?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think and I think that's why I encourage a lot of young magicians to start inventing their own stuff young, when they're younger, because it's not so much whether you're going to eventually sell the trick, but you're developing the creative juices, the creative muscle in your brain to learn to be sort of unhappy or unsatisfied with a certain thing. You want to do it your way. How would you think about how you would do a certain trick your way? And that muscle needs to be developed from young.
And almost if that's a thing that you want to be working on, then almost just erase the whole booking gigs from your mind right now, and just think about and erase the whole releasing magic from your mind, and just think about, just me and the thinking, right?
Yeah, the releasing magic thing, especially selling magic thing, is quite tough. A lot of young magicians, like I said, they want to be the next, Kalen Morelli. They want to release stuff, so they want to be one of the guys that has their name on Penguin Magic and things like that. So they want to do that, but they don't realize that it takes a lot of effort to actually invent something really good.
We got a recent question that I would say we were unable to handle, which was someone was asking us about what we do to sort of take notes or take document of things that we're creating in a good way. And I didn't really have a good answer to it, because I don't create in quantities that need to be documented like that. What sort of procedure or process do you have to document ideas? Is it video? Do you like writing things down? Do you annotate books? What's it like for you?
So I think it's a mixture of things. My main document I use I record things on my phone. I know many magicians out there prefer to write down their things, and I used to write down my things on a notebook as well, until one day I lost the notebook. So I lost like years worth of ideas in one fell swoop. That was a horrible day for me. So nowadays I record stuff on my phone. I use like a note application to just write down all my ideas. I write down a very bare bones description of what the main idea is, and then if I can, I record the trick down, and I put it as an unlisted video on YouTube. So if I need to review it, I can always watch the video to remind myself what the handling is.
Oh, so you have a lot of unlisted videos for you to reflect.
Yeah, I have a lot of unlisted videos. Yes, I have a lot of unlisted videos, or even just videos on my phone that are not uploaded. I just upload it on like Google Photos or something, like on some cloud system, and I just leave it there. So that one day, if I need to review it for, if I want to write stuff out for a new set of lecture notes, I just need to look through and see what ideas I had back then.
So I'll tell you a funny story. I was listening to an interview about the guys who created Dropbox. and they just got together and they had all their files for the Dropbox. They were going to like a pitch to like get investors and stuff. And when they got back to their car was broken into and their computers were entirely stolen. And everything was okay because they literally had all of their stuff in Dropbox. So they were patient zero, of their own project. And they were like, well, lesson learned. This is correct. And,
this is why Dropbox is needed.
Exactly. So that story is a fun little poke reminder to me that even the founders were one step ahead of the game. So, and I love what you're saying. Let's take the internet and let's put it in perspective. Take a note and save it to the cloud. Take a video, save it to a cloud. Take a photo, save it to a cloud. Put it on YouTube. Released, and it also allows you to also, if somebody uploads a video, you can send them and be like, hey, I had the idea, but I did this with it. Here's an unlisted video. Don't share or not do that. But I'm just thinking about, having all of your things documented in such a beautiful, shareable, online, unlosable format can be of benefit. Tyler, you had a question?
No, it's more of just like another thing. Like, not just are you able to store your notes, but you don't need to have stacks and stacks of tapes or paper or whatever. But you can record actual video and visually see it and re-inspire yourself, not just through notes, which you might misread or misunderstand. So
it sounds like we're trying to sell a Kindle.
yeah.
Okay, so we're getting towards the wrap up part of the episode where we have a bunch of different wrap up questions. So the first is, what is one thing? It's sort of called our magic PSA, so our public service announcement. And by the way, you listen to the podcast a lot. Did you listen to some episodes?
I listened to quite a few episodes. I can't say all. I click on those that interest me.
Well, that's so cool. So you already know what's coming for the little wrap up session, but
I do.
That's always giddy. That's always giddy to me. But the first is a magical PSA. So something that you want to tell the world of magicians, a public service announcement, something that they all need to know. So we've had everything from stop doing banana bandana all the way to recently we actually had someone say, start doing banana bandana. But we've had things like love yourself, love what you do, use video camera, whatever, crazy stuff. So what do you want to tell the magicians of the world?
I think a few things. Number one, strive to be good at what you do. Strive to be original in what you do. And in terms of learning magic, explore everything, books, videos, everything you can. Learn as much as you can about this art that you love. Never lose focus on what you love about magic. Don't let anything else get in the way. And let's be the best magicians we can be.
I love it. And just to highlight one thing about that, which is something that we're always preaching, and you just put it in a different way, which is remember the thing that you love about magic. And if you love creating, then create a whole bunch. And if you love writing, then write a whole. And if you love reading old books, and if you love solving broken problems, magic card tricks from the 60s, whatever you like doing, do more of that. Because if we forget the whole business and the booking thing, it's just a hobby and it's just joy that you get to take joy out of. So do more of the stuff that you like.
It's so true though, because I'm a high school physics teacher nowadays, and I always tell my students, sometimes it's not so much about what you do. It's like if you're good at what you do, no one will question why you're doing it. If you're, as long as it's not anything criminal, of course, don't do anything illegal or criminal. But
listen, even if you're really good at that might not. I'm joking.
Yeah, well, as a teacher, I'm not going to endorse criminal activity. I'm not going to endorse criminal activity. As a normal human being, no, I'm just kidding. I think it is so important. Like, if you like weird card tricks, if you like weird coin tricks, or you like banana bandana, whatever you like, if you're really good at it, no one will question why you're doing it.
I love that. That's really funny.
Yeah. So the next question is the question of the week. I'm sure as a listener, you already know what it means. But basically, you get to ask our audience a question. It can be something you want them to respond to, something you want to poll them on, or it can be an introspective question like, why do you do what you do? How does this make you feel? basically, what question do you think our listeners need to be asked?
I think I would like to ask them, why are they not reading Ascanio's books on theory yet?
Oh, love it. I'm currently reading it. It's the best ever. It's unbelievable.
Just get the first volume. Just get the first volume
that's
on
the
the structured conception of magic. Yeah. Why are you not reading it yet? Yeah.
I love that. The question of why aren't you reading more? And just to touch on the Ascanio books. In that first book, are the answers to so many questions that are the foundations of this podcast. Just to like put that in a clear way, like every time I read something, I'm like, oh, that puts something in words that I was never able to put in words, and I just struggled with thinking about that idea for a very long time. So, if you like magic theory, which you do because you're listening to this podcast, like you can't go wrong with that first volume. Like, I don't know about the stuff about thimbles and things, but that first volume, like you can't possibly go wrong with that. Like
I find myself reading the book and just nodding my head constantly. Maybe it's the same for you.
Crazy. It's one of the few books that's made me just like laugh in understanding. It's what a crazy, amazing book.
Yeah, it's so good.
The next question that I wanted to bring forward, even though I know we've touched on probably the topics that will come up in it, but we've talked about so much of the different avenues of learning magic and performing magic. What is something about magic in 2018 that you like, and something about magic in 2018 that you really don't like?
I think we've touched on this just now. I think what I really like about magic in 2018 is how exposed the general public is getting to magic. I really love that. I think it's a very good thing for magic as a whole that the general public, because of the internet, because of social media, because of talent shows, they're getting exposed to a lot of magicians and usually do pretty good magic on there. I think that is fantastic for the art as a whole. I think that will push the industry and the art forward tremendously, just because everyone knows what good magic is, and it forces everyone to be good and original.
I love that. I think that's great. That's a good answer.
As for something bad about 2018 magic, I think there's still that big gap I wish that could be closed between the older generation and the newer generation. So I think a lot of the newer generation, they're so detached from crediting in terms of the history of magic, the history of moves, the history of slides. They think everything they came up with is original to them. They think that a certain control was invented by Dan and Dave, that a certain move was invented by Daniel Madison. But that's all they know. Whereas the older generation don't seem to be very eager to help the younger generation into the fraternity, so to speak. Get interested in, hey, there actually there's this whole history to magic that Charlie Miller and Di Vernon and Ed Marlowe and so on that you have to get into. But there seems to be this gap that's just not closed yet. So nowadays with Instagram, I try to do that with my fully booked series to bridge that gap. But it's a long process.
I love that, and I think that you are, and I sort of touched on this when we started talking about, Instagram magic versus what you're doing with the books and lending towards older creators. But I think you're doing a really fantastic job of bridging the Instagram and people wanting to watch things that are a minute long and watch a short magic video and things like that with the world of magic books, old magic, crediting, and different things like that, which needs to be brought back. So I think that you're doing a really good job in tackling what you believe is a weakness in 2018, and that's a big highlight for me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's just that it's not that crediting is particularly bad or like it has gotten worse over time. I don't think so. I just think that more effort needs to be put into bridging that gap.
I agree.
I thought it was super interesting when you brought up the idea of like the distinction between releasing something for dollars and releasing something for views. It's, it is the way I sort of rephrased it so I can understand it is like, you wouldn't tell someone to go and learn English before they try to have a conversation, right? You would tell them to learn what they learned and try the conversation and make the mistakes and get it wrong. But you also wouldn't tell someone to go become an English teacher without letting them have the conversation.
Yes.
Right?
I have no idea what you're saying.
Okay. So like you wouldn't tell someone that they need to learn English and master it before they have a conversation in English. They need to learn the language through doing it. right? And people are saying you need to go workshop your stuff before you put it on the internet. Well, guess what? That's them workshopping their stuff, right? That's where they're performing. They're going to read the comments and say it's garbage. Yeah. And the other way I was thinking about is like, if you were to tell someone to go, become a master of English before they start teaching English, it makes a little more sense. But you'd want them to have the conversations and learn and see the faults in their language structure, whatever it is. But like, let's just go back to magic, see the faults in their magic, right? And then you can ask someone for some money for you to teach it to them.
What's so interesting to me, what you're saying, Tyler, now, which is really exciting, is that the post on Instagram isn't the product, it's the conversation.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that is very exciting to me. That's a cool revelation about this.
Absolutely. It is a sharing platform. People don't realize it. It's a sharing platform. So you share what you have. And it's not meant to be a final product. Unlike if you sell something, which I think when you sell something, most likely that is supposed to be the final product. And I think a lot of young magicians skip to that step immediately.
I love that. I think it's a good way to look at what we're doing in a different lens sometimes on Instagram. I don't know I guess we didn't ask this yet. Who is one person who you would recommend to the podcast you think we absolutely have to have on, with the only caveat being you have to be able to at least remotely get us in contact with them?
Oh, okay. Someone you must get. That's good. Have you had people on the podcast?
Have we had what?
People Villanueva.
Oh, no, we haven't. We haven't yet, no.
Yeah, you should get him. He's fantastic. You should get him on to talk about magic, because he started magic very late in his career. So, and yet he's so good. So it might be good for him to give you an idea of modern Spanish magic. He's really good.
I love that.
Oh, by the way, just to wrap up one more thing. Just now you mentioned something that you're asking me something I don't like about 2018 magic. Is that I just thought of it, so I want to point it out. Is that when you get young magicians nowadays and you ask them to read up on books and so on, they're not used to paying for stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of them want free material.
I didn't even think about that.
So they're used to YouTube. They're used to YouTube tutorials, and I get a lot of that. So when I'm at my open jams and people ask me, "Oh, Harapan, where can I learn more magic? Where can I do this?" I suggest a book, and I say, "Oh, you can check out this particular book." They'll say, "Oh, well, but it's a lot of money, or is there an online PDF version I can just download for free?" And things like that. So that's quite challenging. That's quite a challenging problem to overcome. A lot of young magicians are used to torrenting and downloading things for free, so they're used to magic tricks coming to them for free.
And I think that one thing about that, whether this is positive or negative, is it is another barrier, along with things being in written format, that is going to stop people from finding some of the best and most interesting and secret published things in the world, that are hiding inside of books. And the other thing that's keeping them away is that it's hiding behind dollars and paywalls, right?
Yeah.
And that people actually have to choose to order the book. So whether you think this is a good thing or a bad thing, people will be held back because A, they don't like reading, or B, other material is free online, or C, they like videos, or whatever the array of reasons are. So I think that's a very cool thing.
Yeah, I think unfortunately for the young magicians out there listening, if you want to get good at magic, or in fact anything, there is some investment needed, whether it is time or, in this case, money.
Totally. Okay, cool. So the last part of the episode is the take-home point. So something important that we thought from the episode that people should take home with them, something that we can distill from an hour long of talking. So for me, I would say a major take-home point for this episode is the idea of creating is fine, just creating to release ends up being problematic. And encouraging young people to create as much as possible is a great thing. People that are new in magic, to create is a great thing, so long as they're not creating to release and to be the next XYZ. And that was a big highlight for me. Tyler, what was a highlight for you?
I sort of mentioned it earlier in the wrap up, but I really like this idea of releasing unpolished stuff to get feedback on it via social media, via books. I loved hearing the idea that, like, there are magicians out there who read books to to get content that they don't think is polished, so that they can work on it, Harapan in specific. But I'm sure he's not the only one. It's just something I hadn't heard before, and I found that to be super interesting and a valuable thing for people who are trying to learn how to be more creative. One of my favorite parts of the episode was actually hearing that both of you were inspired by the Grandfather's Aces and David Copperfield, and that both sent you onto this path of doing magic, and you had very similar experiences in that sense. I just thought that was super cool, and in its own way, kind of magical. Like, it's sometimes coincidence feels like magic. Harapan, what about you?
I think my main takeaway from this is the idea of getting more magicians to embrace the idea of magic online, using social media, using YouTube, using various online platforms to share your magic and start a conversation with magic, as opposed to sort of staying away from it because, magic is just done live and cannot be done in any other form. I think there is an art to it. And the more we embrace technology in magic, I think the more modern magic is going to be, and the more we can see magic in mainstream audiences' minds, in a much better way.
I love that. And I think, just looking back on all the different ways that you brought technology into magic, whether it's inspiring people to use books or sharing magic on Instagram or starting the conversation on Instagram or releasing magic on online platforms like Vanishing Ink or Skyping with people or doing meetups and posting about it or putting your notes up online. There's so many different ways to to use the internet and magic and use technology and magic. And I think that is a super amazing thing to take home. So with that, a big, huge thank you for joining us on the episode. It was a fantastic episode, and it's been, I know I got hiccups right now, but it's been quite a little while wanting to get you on, and I think that you more than delivered. This was a fantastic episode and very exciting to me, just to reiterate that we spoke so much about how useful technology is in so many different ways than we ever have before. So that was a big highlight to me, and a big thank you for joining us on the episode.
Thank you so much, Jonah and Tyler. Thank you very much for having me.
And as always, a big, huge thank you to everybody at home who joined us and listened through, which potentially was audio and technical difficulties, depending on how amazing the editor is. But I think he'll do a really good job because we did a really horrible job with the audio. But with that, a big thank you for joining us, listening to Magic. And most importantly, if I can inspire anything, is the conversation that is Magic is taking place online on Instagram. So join the conversation, come be a part of it. Follow Harapan. Harapan, where can people follow you on online?
You can go to my Instagram page, instagram.com/Harapan Ong. So my name, HARAPANONG.
Amazing. And I think I would say that you're going to get a whole bunch of followers, but I assume everyone is already following you. So a big thank you to you and to everyone. And we will see you all next Thursday.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you go, episode 131. I hope you learned something. And more than anything, I hope that you come and join us online, whether you join us on Instagram or for some reason, if you think there's cooties there, go join us on like Twitter or join us on email or join us on Facebook or wherever you want to join us. Come, because there's magic conversations going on there. And, if you like listening to this, you will definitely like participating in conversation. So thank you so much. Thanks for being a part of this. And we will see you next Thursday, or hear you, I guess. Or I guess you'll hear me.